I hope you like pubic hair, because we're about to get waist deep in the 70s on the Extended Play Podcast with Ian Tank.
It's the Extended Play Podcast with Ian Tank. We are a music discussion show without the hipster snobbery. Today we're back at it with the EP 100. I'm just going to ignore that introduction altogether.
Speaks for itself. Shout out to Z.
Our boy Z.
He knows what's up. Yeah.
It's the EP 100 where we count down the top 100 albums, best 100 albums of our lifetime.
Mm-hmm. 1980 to 2020.
1980 to 2020. We're all the way up to the 70s, as you might have gathered by the introduction. And I think we should get into it. If you're curious about how we came to these decisions, check out a couple episodes ago. I don't have the exact episode number, but we'll leave links down below and maybe probably up here as well. Yeah, but we've had a blast. We were really excited now because I think we're starting to get into some, like, these are all great albums. We put them in our top 100, but these are, I feel like, starting in the 80s and now definitely into the 70s, revisiting these albums. We're getting in some great albums.
Yeah, these are albums that, you go back and listen to the whole thing and forget how great it was.
Absolutely.
So we're today will be numbers 80 through 71. Mm-hmm. We've done 2 already. Like you said, you can go check them out. The introduction of all of our How Do We Rate This was in the 191 episode.
Yes.
Well, I will start it off because I have number 80.
Yep.
In general, we are kind of taking turns talking about them. Generally, the guy that ranked the album higher is the one that's going to talk.
Right.
So, with no further ado, at number 80 is Bruce Springsteen with Born in the USA, which was released in 1984, which, as you've heard me say many times, is the best year of human history.
Wow. It's quite a bold statement.
Find me a better year.
For who?
Anyone.
For anyone?
Just humanity in general.
Okay.
No nuclear wars.
Yeah.
Which, granted, no other year.
Right.
Pop culture at its peak.
Okay.
Everyone doing cocaine and Ronald Reagan and Tigers won the World Series. Doesn't get much better than that, folks.
All
Ghostbusters.
Great movie.
Yeah. All right. So E, not a fan. He put it number 99 on his list.
I did. Now we culled. There was a list of 250 at one point.
It doesn't mean he thinks it's shit. It's just amongst these 100, the shittiest, or the vice shittiest.
The vice shittiest.
Also, I had it number 45, so there's a pretty big spread here, and that's why I started noting these actually, because from here on out we get a lot of. Up until now, the albums were both. We thought, okay, they deserve to be on the list, but meh. Now we're getting into some pretty big disparities in how we rank them.
Stuff we're passionate about.
Right. So it was negotiated. This was not an exempt, and it was not a blind match. So we agreed it needed to be here, just, barely, apparently. So songs on this album, just to refresh your memory, maybe make you go back to Spotify and check it out, because it is pretty fucking impressive, is 7 singles on this album. I'm sure they all went top 10. I don't know.
Were there 10 songs, 7 singles? Or?
11 or so,
11,
right?
Yeah.
But Dancing in the Dark, Born in the USA, I'm on Fire, Glory Days.
Gosh.
Personal favorite.
I like Glory Days, actually.
It's a good song. I'm Going Down, hated that song.
Yeah, it's not good.
Cover Me and My Hometown. The last 2 I don't remember as well, but those were all singles. So easily one of the most iconic pop albums ever.
Absolutely.
Even if you, obviously the Madonnas and Princes and Michael Jacksons of the world are ahead of Bruce in terms of their peaks, but in terms of one specific album, I think you'd be hard pressed to find just a more slice of Americana pop album.
Yeah, and one that was truly authentic. Like, even though he had built up this career as a singer-songwriter and like the next coming of Dylan, I don't think it may have seemed like a slight left turn or just a more leaning into his pop sensibilities.
Exactly.
But he could do it.
Right.
And then he continues to return to this kind of mode whenever he wants to, which just goes to show what a talented artist he is.
Right. Definitely a breakthrough moment for him. Easily, and including the album cover, iconic cover.
Absolutely.
You know, parodied and satirized in a million different ways.
Yeah.
Did you know Pink Cadillac? Remember that?
I do remember Pink Cadillac.
But it was a B-side to this album.
No, really?
Yes, it came out later on, I think, a soundtrack or a compilation or something.
Oh, maybe. Okay, was there? I thought there was like a video. I might be thinking of the Aretha Franklin pick. Oh, okay.
No. Oh my God. Yeah, he's allergic to Aretha Franklin.
That's right.
It's a very rare allergy.
It is,
but non-lethal. So
thankfully.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know. But there were 70 to 90 songs recorded for this album.
Wow, really?
Yeah. And so there were a ton of, and the Wikipedia article lists where they all ended up. But I didn't, Pink Cadillac, I just assumed was a pretty big Bruce Springsteen hit, not a B-side.
Okay.
But whatever.
Fun, did you know this? I didn't write this down, that there were dance remixes to a number of songs from this album.
Really?
And I remember them. If I played one for you now, and you cannot get them anywhere, they've been like wiped from existence. They show up on YouTube and then they get taken down. I think that you can still find them now. But look, Dancing in the Dark has a pretty extensive dance remix. I could sort of
see that.
Yes, which is like they just the drum track it's doubled up. There's a more thumping bass, and they just extend the instrumental parts. But it was a trip down memory lane.
Yeah,
I'll link to those down below as well. Man, were those crazy.
But yeah, it was a big album at the time. It's hard to ignore. Just, again, in terms of weight and gravitas, we didn't think it belonged higher than here. But number 80.
Yeah. Which brings us to number 79, which is an album I ranked a little bit higher than Tank did here. A lot higher, actually. And that was Dookie by Green Day. Yep. So that is also 1994. Well, I guess it is a pretty good year.
94.
Not
My year's 84.
Your's 84. They're different.
Yes. But 94 is a great year.
94 was a great year. Graduated from high school, freshman year of college for us.
And in all seriousness, from a rock standpoint, nothing is touching 90 to 95.
Yeah, that's a great time for sure. I had a lot of fun revisiting this album. 15 songs, 38 minutes long, unsurprisingly. I mean, there's 3 songs that are less than 3 minutes long.
Wow.
I mean, this was my, believe it or not, introduction to punk. And I know, asterisk, this is not punk, it's pop punk, whatever. They're not part of the scene and all that kind of stuff. We don't need to get into the whole history. But for me, lily white dude in the suburbs who didn't have exposure to underground music really at all, this was punk to me. And then it was a gateway drug into things that are more raw and more like traditionally punk. So very successful in that way. And if you hate on them for that, fuck you. That's stupid. Anyway.
Quick side question. Does anyone really like the Ramones?
Like,
I get it, right?
It's more like a badge of honor to wear the t-shirt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But is anyone being like, I'm going to go home, listen to some Ramones today?
Maybe. I don't know.
I don't think so.
Nobody we know.
I just don't know that anyone does. I think it's look, I get it.
Yeah.
They're the punkiest of the punk, but like, who the fuck listens
Same thing
to
with Sex Pistols and like a few of them. Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, singles from this album. This is their third album. Singles include Longview, which I forgot was named Longview. You know the song.
Yes.
The song essentially about being bored and masturbating a lot. Yeah. It was actually named after the town of Longview, Washington, and I couldn't get into why it was named after that, but whatever.
Okay.
Longview, Basket Case, Welcome to Paradise, When I Come Around. So really solid, very memorable. And that's the thing that when I was revisiting this, Billy Joe Armstrong's knack for writing melodies is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Especially for punk. And that's what made it, and that's kind of what denotes it as pop punk, is that the melodies are so strong and so sing along. So what else did I have here? It's got that punk vibe, the fuck you, I'm a kid, I'm disaffected. It's got all those things that appeals to a young audience, which again, 1994, 17, 18, it's hitting me right where I live. Lines like, I'm not growing up, I'm just burning out, and I stepped in line to walk amongst the dead, right? That's like when you're starting to assert independence and feel like, I don't want to be like my parents. This is hitting you right there.
Yep.
That's one of the reasons why I loved it. That balance of melodic and heavy, right? Because you still have heavy, loud guitars, but very melodic choruses. The songs do blend together after a while. 15 songs is a lot.
Yeah.
Right. I was impressed by the drums. There's a lot of really good drum fills on this. Whatever his name is, Trey Cool.
Or is that the bassist? No, it's Trey Cool's the drummer.
Trey Cool's the drummer. Yeah. I was surprised. There's a lot of breakdowns where they give him time to just do some cool drum breakdowns, or they give him some really good opportunities for cool drum fills. So, overall, just a really solid album. I ranked it my 58th album of our lifetime. Tank ranked it his 84th. So pretty big gap there.
Mostly on Billy Joel Armstrong's voice bothers me.
And this whole genre. We've talked about this when I gave you a Goldfinger song to listen to. You really don't like that.
That kind of affected British accent.
Oh, yeah. He does have that too. That's true.
Not a fan. Yeah. But great songs. When I Come Around is a great song.
When I Come Around is a great song. I do really like that one. Yeah. All right. And then I have the next one as well.
You have
which
78.
Is number 78. Let's get a drink of water while Tank entertains you.
I will entertain you by drinking water.
Gulp. Number 78. Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots by the Flaming Lips. Now for something completely different, right? I ranked this number 51. Tank ranked it number 91. Again, pretty big gap here. I had a blast revisiting this album. I've listened to it here and there since it was released in 2002, so now 22 years ago. This made me want to listen to it more often by revisiting it. 11 songs, 47 minutes long. It's their 10th album.
Wow.
And this is the album that essentially broke them into sort of mainstream success. The Soft Bulletin before it was a very critically, the critics really love that album. But this one is where they have a big single that most people recognize because it's used in fucking car commercials and stuff now, which is Do You Realize? By the way, I just want to make a note here. Highly recommend listening to the Song Exploder episode for Do You Realize? He talks about Wayne Coyne, the lead singer, and it's Stephen Drozd, who's a multi-instrumentalist, but primarily the drummer, I think. They talk about how the process of writing the song and all the different iterations it went through, and how they never expected to have like a hit song. To have, they're a weird group of guys.
Yeah.
I mean, they make weird music intentionally. They take standard song structure and they mess with it, and they add a lot of weird beeps and all sorts of just crazy noises. And they didn't expect to have write a pop song, and they did. And he talks about how he's come to terms with it. And like, he never thought he'd had one of his songs being played at people's weddings. Like, people are telling him like, oh, this was our wedding song, or we played this at my father's funeral. And he sees people in the audience, and he said they've played it every single show since 2002, get like choked up. And then he gets choked up in the interview. Anyway, to promote another podcast other than the Extended Play podcast, but check out the Song Exploder. It's not even close to the best song of the album. It kind of stands alone as a very pop catchy album.
Right.
It gets remembered as a concept album about Yoshimi battling the Pink Robots. The first three songs have something to do with that generally.
Like a sweet.
Yeah.
Yes.
The rest after that are just songs. Anyway, super enjoyable. I love this. I was at a point, like, I think when I discovered Radiohead, when Radiohead made their left turns and started getting a little bit weird, I was more willing to accept this kind of music. I was listening to more straight ahead rock music before the early 2000s. And this kind of experimental nature of these songs, there's two instrumentals that are kind of wacky, but the songs are tight. They're only 3.5, 4 minutes long. So even when it gets weird, it's still sticking to a very predictable structure, which makes it really enjoyable. Standout tracks, Fight Test, Are You a Hypnotist? Do You Realize? Of course. The instrumental, which I believe won a Grammy, it's the very last song in the album. It's called Approaching Pavanis Mons by Balloon, parentheses, Utopia Planitia.
Yeah, because that really needed the parentheses.
It's a very Sufjan title, by the way.
Yeah, seriously.
It's a great instrumental. I highly recommend it. So, yeah.
Yeah, and the reason I had it at 91 wasn't so much... I'm just unfamiliar. I listened to it once. I did enjoy it. I could see if we revisited this in 10 years, it being higher. Sure. I enjoyed the listen. I just don't know much about it. And compared to the other ones that I was familiar with, I couldn't put it above.
Yeah, sure.
So
totally. Yeah. So that's number 78. And now we're going to swing it on over to Tank for 77.
Yep. Number 77 is from a little quartet out of Atlanta called REM. And it is the first of multiple entries for them on this list. It is New Adventures in Hi-Fi, album that came out in 1996. We were actually pretty tightly bunched on this. E had him at 79. I had it at 61. So it's definitely their most eclectic and experimental album, at least of when it mattered.
And when
we'll
people were still paying attention.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was recorded mostly on the road.
Oh,
and you didn't know that?
No.
Yeah, it was mostly sound checks and stuff.
Oh, cool.
So they brought the recording. That's why it has that kind of airy live sound.
Yeah.
They were basically, and my second note here is they sort of stole this idea from Radiohead. So Radiohead was opening for them in 94, 95.
Okay.
And they were laying down tracks for the bends.
Got it.
While that was happening.
I see. Okay.
So they kind of liked the idea. And I'm sure most, especially rock bands, will tell you they write most of the material on tour.
Absolutely.
And then they come home and record it.
Yeah.
They like the concept of, well, why wait?
Yeah.
Let's just work it out on tour.
It's a great idea.
Plus, instrumentally, you're all finely tuned.
You're in the zone. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
A handful of them were just completely done in the studio after the fact.
Okay,
like
gotcha.
Ebo the Letter and a few other ones.
Okay.
But for the most part, recorded live, and they didn't really look for any kind of cohesive thread to pull it together. It's just, they really were kind of trying to go, not trying to, but they letting themselves go in many different directions. The band in general considers this their best album. Michael Stipe says it's their best
No
album.
kidding.
Yep. And fans consider it the end of the great albums.
Ah,
Now, to that end, and we'll talk about this a little bit more and further down the list, but in terms of, I mean, REM has kind of reserved their spot in the upper echelon, maybe top 10 bands of all time. A 5-year period for them.
yeah.
Out of Time,
Okay.
Automatic for the People, Monster, and New Adventures in Hi-Fi.
That's pretty solid.
And a 5-year
That's
period.
a lot of output too. Jeez.
Yes.
I mean, and quality output.
Out of Time and Automatic for the People were a year apart.
Oh my God.
And then Monster was 2 years later, and then Hi-Fi 2 years after that.
Wow.
So that's an amazing run. And
It
that's
really
not
is.
even the beginning of their quality work. It's just that particular.
Right. Yeah. And they were good from the get-go, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So just an amazing set of albums there. So there's a lot to say about it. We could do a deep dive,
Yeah.
but basically the tracks that I think that are worth listening to, of course, Bittersweet Me, Electrolyte, which Tom York says is their best song.
That's a great song.
And I love Leave. Leave is a weird fucking song.
Oh, I don't know that I remember
That's
that
the
one.
that starts off with like acoustic, and then that siren, or it's like guitar siren, like
Yes,
and it
yes.
never
Yes.
stops.
Yes.
But
That is a cool song.
Great example of the ethos of the album.
Yeah.
It's like it starts off like, whoa, that doesn't work. And a few minutes later, it's like, yeah, it kind of works.
Yeah, absolutely.
And So Fast, So Numb is one of my personal favorites. But great songs on that album.
I love Ebo the Letter. I actually really like that song.
I do. I like it. Patti Smith sings on that song.
Oh yeah, she does.
Yep.
That's right.
Yep.
My first REM album.
Really?
First one I ever bought. Yeah. And no regrets. I remember playing it and like, oh, this is like, it was for an album to be like this kind of experimental and to be the first one I sink into their catalog with. I'm really happy about that choice. Like I don't know.
In terms of inspiration, probably not coincidence that this album came out after touring with Radiohead.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Cool.
So then moving on to number 76, it is, oh look, it's REM again. So Green from REM comes in at number 76. That album came out in 1988.
Okay.
We were even more tightly bunched on this. E put him at 74. I had the album at 65. So this is where REM crossed into, by the way, both of these albums were negotiated. Still not a whole lot of blind matches yet.
No.
So this is where REM crossed from indie and college darling into a mainstream act. I mean, the quality was always there, but it was very much a collegey,
Yes.
most people don't know it sort of thing.
Yeah.
Green comes out and now they're a big band.
Yeah.
It seems to oscillate. I mean, this is just my opinion, but I'm sure that it's maybe a relatively common critical take. The album seems to oscillate between trying to make good pop songs and mocking pop songs.
True. Isn't Pop Song 89 on
Pop
this?
Song 89 is here, and Stand, which feels like it's almost a parody
It
of,
really does.
Right.
Like Shiny Happy People later
Exactly.
on. Right. Yeah.
so it's interesting. It's like at the same time, kind of like taking the piss out of it, but then also trying
Leaning
it.
into it. Yeah.
And maybe both of those were unintentional.
Sure.
Maybe that's just my perception.
Yeah,
They
it could
weren't.
be.
But they definitely, in reading about the album, they definitely were trying.
Okay.
It was a conscious effort to be a little more
Accessible.
mainstream, not in a sellout kind of way, but like it's like, well, let's do this next sort of way.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
A new challenge sort of thing. It was intended to be a half electric, half acoustic album.
Okay.
Like Foo Fighters, In Your Honor.
Oh yeah.
But they did not have enough good acoustic songs. So like they fully intended this to be like
That's
a
funny.
half and half, and I'm like, well,
Guess we're not doing that.
guess we're not doing that. Yep. So you ended up with an all electric album. Some monster songs here. So like we just said, Pop Song 89, Stand. I hate Stand. I never
I don't
liked
like.
it.
I don't like.
Part
it.
of what ruined it was the fucking video. That was
Yeah.
horrible.
Yeah.
And this is right about when I got MTV in the house finally.
Oh, okay.
Maybe. And it was on all the fucking time.
Was it Pop Song 89? Was it KRS One on Pop Song 89?
Well, he was on Radio Song.
He's on Radio Song. I get
Yeah.
those songs confused.
Hey.
Very good.
Thank you.
Baby, 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 baby.
Yes. And also, Orange Crush, amazing. It's one of my favorite REM songs.
Great song.
Oh,
Great song.
and Turn You Inside Out is my sleeper
I don't
pick
know that
on
one.
that album. Yeah,
Okay.
go back, check it out.
Okay.
Turn You Inside Out.
Nice.
So that, my friends, is number 76.
Excellent.
Now we'll go back to E for number 75.
75. album I just listened to again in full yesterday in preparation, Doggy Style by Snoop Dogg.
I do Doggy Style in preparation all the time.
For all sorts of activities.
You just never know.
I mean, I could not wipe the smile off my face as I listened to it because it's a very funny album. And this is what was great about Snoop back in the day is this blend of hardcore rap, like talking about like illicit drugs and killing people, and then balancing it with a sort of ridiculous wordplay and puns. There's the crude sex humor too. The
radio station breakdowns between songs are still word for word memorable.
Word for word.
Yep.
I could sing the W Balls jingle right now if you asked me to.
DJ Easy Dick.
The one random skit at the end before G's and Hustlers, which is a teacher introduces himself and he asks the kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And one's like, a firefighter, a police officer. And the one kid says, I want to be a motherfucking hustler. You better ask somebody. It's so great.
Oh, it's fantastic.
I was a little bummed in looking back that the skits are in the intros of all the songs.
That's the worst.
So if you wanted to make a mixtape back in the day,
good luck.
You had the skits too, but the skits were so funny. That's probably why they're so memorable. Is because we were listening to individual. I couldn't avoid it. I had a thing where for the years I said I bought Snoop Dogg, Doggy Style, and Pearl Jam verses on the same day, and that they were released on the same day. They were not released on the same day. I'm completely misremembering it. I may have bought them on the same day.
Yeah, but they're probably released within weeks of each other.
Yeah, about a month.
Yeah.
So, okay, 13 songs, 52 minutes. It's his debut album. It's actually pretty much downhill from here for Snoop. I mean, he is now a different kind of celebrity.
Quickly.
Right? Yeah, like the next album.
Is the next one like paid the cost to be the boss or something?
It might have been. It was whatever it was. It was not great.
Yeah.
Strange fact about this album, not about the production or anything, but just about the album, the songs themselves. You open up with a long skit, a really dumb skit about him being in the bathtub and someone coming up and saying, are you going to quit? And he's like, no, I'm not. Yeah, I'm thinking about quitting the game. I'm not going to make. Yeah, but he hasn't even made an album yet. So it's really weird.
Yeah.
And then the first actual verse of rap on the album is not Snoop. It's
Corrupt
the Lady of Rage.
Oh, well.
Rocks rough and stuff with her Afro puffs.
With her Afro puffs, not without.
Not with them. Lottie Dottie. Revolutionary, even if you don't care for the song all that much. Is that what I'm getting from your reaction?
I thought it was an odd... For a debut album, it's a weird choice.
It's a weird choice. I thought, like, just looking back, he did a cover song. Like, hip hop is not known for cover songs. You're always trying to outdo the person before you. And he's like, and he says at the beginning, if you don't like it, basically tough shit. And he had just his sense of humor is inserted in the lines that he changes. Like, instead of saying Gucci underwear, he says doggy underwear. Polo cologne becomes cool water cologne. Forgot my Kango is forgot my Indo. Yeah. Pretty great stuff. Strong guest verses on this album from the Dog Pound, Daz and Corrupt. RBX, who I forgot has like a comically authoritative voice. Yeah. A Lady of Rage. Warren G has a verse. Nate Dogg on It Ain't No Fun.
Rest in peace.
Oh, yeah, rest in peace. It Ain't No Fun. I have distinct memories of singing that out loud at the Land Shark in East Lansing.
Oh yeah,
and having
probably
the entire bar singing.
Oh yeah, probably with your hat backwards. And
I mean,
Abercrombie khakis.
Yeah, pretty embarrassing, but also pretty awesome because it is a filthy song, and we were kind of all reveling in how dirty the song was.
Reveling in dirt was pretty much college.
It really was. So number 75, Snoop Dogg, Doggy Style. Brings us to number 74.
That's right.
The Stone Roses, self-titled album. I rank this pretty highly.
I would imagine there has to be a big spread here.
43 and 92.
Yep. Exact same as, well.
Oh, pretty much.
No, I'm saying in terms of.
That's Born in the USA.
No, I'm thinking of Yoshimi. But I don't think I liked it as much as I liked Yoshimi. So this one I think was a little bit of a, this genre, this type of music has never been my bag.
That's true. That's very true. So Stone Roses' debut album comes out in 1989, 12 songs, 58 minutes long. It's their debut album, and it's really important. This is pretty much the only good Stone Roses. So they had a couple singles. They're from Manchester, England. They became super popular locally, recorded this album, and then went astronomically popular. And they are still, for people in the UK, a seminal, one of the greatest bands of all time. They are Oasis before Oasis is Oasis in their popularity. They're not Britpop. They have some like sort of dance house elements to their music sometimes, which I'm not always crazy about. There's some psych elements, but overall, it's just great melodic rock music. And, as I re-listen to it, and I listen to this album pretty frequently, it's a very good in the background album.
I can see that.
There's only one skip on this album. I mean, they're all, if they're not the most memorable and best songs you've ever heard, they're all really solid, which is why it's in the 80s or 70s. Sorry. Standout tracks, I Want to Be Adored, the very first song, Waterfall, Made of Stone, this is the one. So a lot of standout tracks for me. If you're an Oasis fan and you want to kind of see what came before and influence them greatly, I believe Noel Gallagher, one of the Gallaghers, whatever, always says that they're the best band of all time.
Really?
It's like Beatles and Stone Roses to them.
Wow.
And it makes a lot of sense if you listen to two back to back. So
okay, I could see that.
Yep, that's 74, Stone Roses.
All right, coming in hot at number 73 is Beastie Boys, Paul's Boutique, released in 1989. Again, pretty tight grouping here. E rated at 74, I 65. And this was another negotiated one that not exempt or a blind match. But so this is a pretty tremendous leap forward artistically from License to Ill, to the point that it almost makes me feel like License to Ill was like performance art.
Really?
I mean, because it's just like the whiniest,
most ridiculous,
douchiest,
like caricature. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And then like to go make a, I don't know, it's an oxymoron, but a mature hip hop album, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So pretty jarring. The Dust Brothers were the producers, and more than half of the songs in this album were intended to be Dust Brothers.
Oh, really?
Instrumentals.
Okay.
So they wanted to work with them. There's a ton of interesting stories about the sampling, how many samples were done, and how cheaply they got the samples.
Right.
They said it was like $250,000 for all the samples, which in today's, with today's market would be, it'd be undoable.
Yeah. I'll drop a link to in the show notes about, you can find YouTube playlists or even single videos with all of the samples.
I think it was something like 132 different songs were sampled.
Pretty cool.
So it's interesting that, you bring them in as producers and they listened to them, and the Dust Brothers thought the songs would be way too dense, and they made versions where they stripped out a lot of the noise and samples to leave just the beats, and like, no, leave it the way it is.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's why it's like just a thick sounding.
It really is. There's a lot going on.
Yeah. It's one of those things where, normally when we're listing these albums that are on this list, there's a bunch of singles and hit songs. I mean, it had Shake Your Rump, Hey Ladies, and Shadrach. Other ones that I know are like the next tier down, like, looking on the barrel of a gun. But it's not like it was full of hits. It was very much a
album for album's sake.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was very much an album.
Yeah.
Beastie Boys were another victim of what we had alluded to earlier with Outkast, and that they're not going to appear on this list as much as you think they would, because their content is spread out pretty evenly on albums.
Yes.
We spent a lot of minutes talking about Check Your Head versus Ill Communication.
Yeah.
Again, if we did a top 100 artist list, they would be pretty high on the list, but they don't have any one album that necessarily is, all right, this is the clear magnum opus.
Right.
Which, again, speaks to their longevity and quality.
Absolutely.
But of the ones, we settled on Paul's Boutique as the one that deserved to be on the list.
Yep.
Just for how maybe innovative and fresh it was at the time.
Absolutely.
Funky fresh even. Maybe even dope.
Wow.
So
it's high praise.
It is. So that was 73.
Coming in at 72 is an album we've talked about a couple times, I think, on this show, is Transatlanticism by Death Cab for Cutie.
Great name.
Great name for an album. Absolutely. Near and dear to Tank's heart as someone who's done a lot of traveling.
I have. I like the word just because I've flown over the Atlantic many a time. And it was going to be the name of our podcast if I was stationed in Europe.
Ooh, that's great.
I mentioned that to you.
I think you did. Yeah. That's great.
So like if we were not in the same room and we were doing this remotely, I would have called it Transatlanticism.
Love it.
We could still do it.
Sure. No, you're not going anywhere.
All right.
The people demand that you stay here.
They need to see this in the flesh.
That's right.
Yeah.
I ranked it my 48th best album of my lifetime, and Tank ranked it number 82.
Was this did we match on this one?
I believe it. I don't know.
All right.
I did not write down that.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Transatlanticism holds a spot in my heart as being like my introduction to indie music, like a lot of people through essentially the show The OC, where their songs were featured a number of times, where Seth Cohen, played by Adam Brody, mentions them a number of times by name, saying Death Cab's his favorite. He goes to a Death Cab show. They might even have played live on The OC.
A really bad band name when you think about it.
It's a bad. Is that from a Monty Python sketch, or is that another band? No, that's Toad the Wet Sprocket.
Oh,
yeah,
which is also a terrible name, but
yeah, not a great band name. It is their 5th album.
Okay,
came out in 2003.
What do you really like about it?
Yeah, I really connect with Ben Gibbard's lyrics. He's just so earnest.
Would you say his earnest lyricism?
His earnest lyricism. Yeah, right. Nailed it first time. Yeah, so he's a very good storyteller. There'll be a lot of characters in his songs, and some will be confessional. But what I like is this is one of the first times I'd ever heard this. And I didn't listen to a lot of folk or singer-songwriter stuff growing up, is where the story takes place over the entire song, where it's like multiple verses continues on this with the story. There's some eye-rolly bits. Like when you go to be this earnest, there's sometimes where you're like, oh, come on, this is just too cheesy.
Right.
The opening lines to Title and Registration, the glove compartment isn't accurately named and everybody knows it. Like
it's true though.
It's true. And then he goes on. He's like,
facts.
He's like, I don't put my gloves in there.
It'd be funny if the song is getting increasingly irritated about it. But seriously, folks, why did they name it that?
Yeah, but the sequencing's great. They vary song tempo a lot. Their slow songs are just as good, and will have like powerful moments in them. Great blend of like they do the loud quiet really well.
Yeah, Sound of Settling's a great song.
Sound of Settling's a great song. My standout tracks: Tiny Vessels, Transatlanticism, which we've had in the playlist challenge I think before. Passenger Seat, We Look Like Giants, A Lack of Color. So there's a lot of standout tracks for me. I really enjoy this.
Great album cover too.
Great album cover, which we covered in our best album covers, which I will link here and probably there. Yeah, that's really all I have to say about that. That is Transatlanticism number 72.
And for the final installment in today's episode of the Hairy 70s.
I'm glad I didn't do a spit take there.
Making a comeback from what I understand.
Can we not?
Okay.
Notorious B.I.G. Ready to Die 1994 is number 71. I ranked this number 37
in a row.
And Tank ranked it number 93.
I don't like B.I.G.
He does not.
I'm just going to come out and say it.
He does not.
I think he's overrated.
Yeah.
I think he's a good MC.
Yeah.
I like the early stuff, the whole video clip of him rapping on the street, freestyling.
So
it's good. He's not, to me, one of the best.
Yeah.
I know that's sacrilege. But.
Yeah. I get it. Yeah. This is the only album. I mean, he only made 2 albums. One came out, there was this, and then the next one came out posthumously, something like 2 weeks after he died. Like it was all, which is pretty rough. This song, I in the re-listen, just how dark this album is. It's called Ready to Die. And that is, I mean, the opening track is like a walk through his life and how much of a struggle his life has been. Is like, about his drug dealing past and all that kind of stuff, and how he's going to use hip hop as his way to make it. It's the only chance he has to make something of himself. But over and over again, he's very vulnerable in his lyrics. He'll boast at one side, on one hand with like how great of a rapper he is, but then talk about what a big piece of shit he is and like regret the decisions he's made in his life, which again, Tupac was known for this as well. It's no surprise that they were friends and contemporaries. But not common in hip hop. A little more common today. I think you have more emo hip hop.
He was ahead of his time.
Absolutely ahead of his time.
Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis.
I mean, Juicy alone for the memorable lines.
Yeah.
I mean, definite standout track. But other standout tracks, I really like the final one, which is called, I didn't write it down. It's called, I don't remember.
I'm going to pull it up.
Yes.
Takes teamwork to make the dream work here on the Extended Play Podcast.
We're not including all of this. Not a fucking chance.
Sure we are. You could do one of those fast forward bits.
I could.
Yeah.
So the song Ready to Die, this has got one more chance on it. I'm not a fan of slow rap songs. Like if you checked out our review of the Killer Mike album, I'm not a fan of those typically. Big Papa's on this. I mean, just classic bar after classic bar in that song. Suicidal Thoughts is the one at the end where he's like just saying like, I'm a piece of shit. I'm a drug dealer. I'm a waste of space. I shouldn't be around. Pretty harrowing. It's like actually kind of hard to listen to, and it's the last song in the album. Yeah. And then he dies.
Yeah.
And then he has the sort of, what's it called? Life After Death was the next album, which I didn't care for really at all. Yeah. So I don't know how much you need to hear me say about B.I.G.
It's one of those things, right?
It's just one of those things.
Everyone knows it.
Everyone knows it. Yeah. Yeah. And that rounds us out, the 70s.
Yeah.
71, Ready to Die.
So we will be back in 2 weeks' time with the next 10. And now it's getting
into the 60s. I
just keeps getting better.
I'm holding my breath to find out what you're going to say about the 60s in your intro.
It can't be worse than the 70s.
No, it cannot. Thanks for watching, everyone. Please like and subscribe, and we will see you next time.
And don't forget to comment.
Yes.
Comment below. Tell us what you think, and we'll be back in 2 weeks.
That's right. See ya.
See ya.